Hey folks, welcome back to On the Bench. Today I'm going to tie up Deb's personal Conehead Bulldog. This is a bulldog I used with great success in Paul River area. I've used it in lakes, some streams, even in the Columbia. Make sure you have these materials handy before you tie the fly. For hook, I'm using a Sprite Streamer barbless hook, size 4. The bead is a medium gold Conehead bead. For thread, I'm using 6/0 nano silk in black. The tail is a rusty brown marabou. The flash in the tail is peacock flashabou. I'm using 0.8mm lead wire for some weight. The rib is copper brown small wire. For the body, it's straggle string in copper brown by Semperfli. And for the hackle, I'm using brown and olive grizzly hackle. So to begin, I place my hook and bead in the vise, and I'm just going to take my lead wire here and wrap it around about 10 times. And then I'm just going to pinch it off. If you have super glue, you could put it underneath. I'm just going to use my thread to hold it in place because I'm out of super glue again, as always. I'm just going to pinch that down, that end, like so. Now you can take your thread and start it on the hook. I'm just going to start it right at the lead wire here, put a couple of wraps in behind, and now I'm going to go through the lead, holding it in place. Cone has no weight to it, so this gives the fly a little bit of weight. Like I said in the intro, this is my fly that I like fishing in areas like Powell River. It's been really good in the lakes. I have actually fished it in the Columbia, and I've done very well on it. But I usually would use the one with no cone head, so it's exactly the same fly minus the cone head and the lead wire. Well, and the lead wire. Sometimes I use lead wire underneath. It just depends on the depth and where I'm fishing. But in the cone head, I always like to have the lead wire in there. Let's go ahead and snip that off. Next, you can take your tailing material, which I didn't introduce in the intro, and it is marabou. So I've got some rusty brown marabou. Sorry about that. And I'm just going to pull it from the sides. So I'm going to take one clump, just snip the curly ends off there, tie it in. I think one clump should do it. I'm just going to measure it about the length of my shank. Try and fill in this area here a little bit. I think one clump should be enough on this one. Sometimes I've had to take two. No, that looks good. So I just took a little bit off the side of the feather, about that much. Next, you can take your flash. So I've got the flashabou that I'm using. Here. And I'm just going to cut out one piece. I don't want to overwhelm it with flash. It's already got straggle in it. I'm just going to tie it onto my side. And then I'm going to bring it around, tie it onto the other side, holding them in place. Oh, mine came up a little bit. Hold those in place and just go over top of them, like so. Next, bring your thread to the front. Again, you clip off your flash. I just clip it just past the tail where the tail ends. Now you can take your wire, and I've got about a 10-inch piece of wire here. Nice long piece. And you can just tie it in. And then you can also take your straggle, and I've got a really long piece of straggle here, probably about 12 inches. And I'm just going to double it up here on my thread, like so, and then tie it back with the wire. like so. Now I'm going to bring my thread back forward. Now you can take your straggle and wind it up the hook. So I'm just going to twist it together, make sure none of my tail's stuck in it there. Just twist it together. And then you can begin wrapping it up the hook, touching turns. Like so. The best way to fish this, well, if I was going to fish it in a river, is on a sinking line, deep sink line, or a sink tip. Even in the lake, they like to take it in deep water, I find, anyway. 40 feet sometimes. I tie them in a smaller version for lakes, though. This is a bit more for the river, the size 4. I tie them down to a size 8. Snip that off. When you're choosing a bugger hackle, I just like to spread out the feather and then just measure it and see what it looks like on my hook, so how far it's going to come down. That's about right, so that's where I'm going to snip it. And then I'm just going to take and snip just the sides down on the end of the feather to make myself a little anchor to tie it in with. So I'm going to tie the brown feather in first. Give that some good wraps. And next I'm going to tie in the olive feather. I prepared the olive feather the same way with my little anchor. You want that olive in front of the brown feather. I believe Dawn and Brent use rusty orange hackle. I don't have rusty orange, so I just use this brown. It's kind of a rusty brown color anyway. So now I'm going to take both feathers at once, and I'm just going to turn them at the front of the hook. And now I'm going to take them backwards, making sure the green's still in front, or the olive. And I'm just going to wind it down, leaving space in between, so probably about 5 times until I get to the back. Bring it around, and now you can bring your wire around with the other hand. Oh, my wire's on the other side of my hook. I just have to bring it underneath. Okay, so that it's underneath. And now I'm going to trap this feather, these 2 feathers, with this wire, like so. Now they're not going anywhere. And I like to make 2 turns at the back, just to hold that securely. Now I'm just going to take my wire and wiggle it through the feather. And space my turns. Just wiggle it through and you won't trap too many down. You don't have to be in a big rush. Like so. And that little bit of UV in there really gives this fly something special. It really, when you get it in the water, you can really see it. Right up to the front. And now I'm going to tie it off. Take a couple more turns at the front here. Whoop. Just make sure that wire's tied in good. Now I'm just going to helicopter it off, holding my thread tight. That's gone. Now I'm going to snip my feathers. Like so. And just bring your feather back, all your feathers back. Go over top of them with your thread. Build a little collar behind that cone, and then whip finish. I like to give it 2 with the nano silk. I'm not going to use any head cement or anything like that. Nice black collar in behind there. Like so. And you can give your thread a snip, and that's it. Deb's personal Conehead Bulldog. Thanks for joining me on this edition of On the Bench. Take care, everyone. Conserve the waters and tight lines.